How's it going, everyone? Kevin here with Roll On Gaming. Welcome back to the channel and a happy Revenge of the 5th to all of you. I hope your May 4th was fantastic. I know mine was, and that's why we're here today because we got some big news on May the 4th. You might be wondering, why isn't your co host here? Why is it just you? What's going on with that? Well, he's off doing whatever it is he's doing, but this is an emergency podcast because we got potentially the best news that we've gotten in Star Wars Unlimited ever since the announcement of the game itself. And that is, of course, that Darth Revan is coming to Star Wars Unlimited. I'm going to give you a second to let that sink in, but not too long because we got to talk about this. This is incredible. This was widely speculated, widely rumored, and here we have Darth Revan revealed on a Sunday of all days. We love to see it. So we're going to talk about all things Darth Revan here in a very brief amount of time. But first, we got to hit on the two things that really stand out about this Darth Revan leader. Obviously, the first one being, aside from the villainy aspect, there is no aspect. So what does that mean for deck building? Well, we're definitely going to have to get into that and figure out where we go from here with Darth Revan. But the other thing to point out is there's that little gold bar right at the bottom of the leader and also underscoring the actual name of the card, Darth Revan. That gold bar, we believe, has been confirmed to mean that this is a Legends non-canon card, which really opens up a massive amount of design space. If this isn't the only one of its kind, we have obviously no knowledge of whether or not Darth Revan is going to be the only card that looks like this. We could even see another Darth Revan that is all heroism. Again, no information whatsoever, except for the fact that this one is here, has the gold bars, is only one aspect, and seems really exciting. So let's talk about what this leader actually does. So Darth Revan, Scourge of the Republic, is a villainy-only leader that has the ability when a friendly unit attacks and defeats a unit, you may exhaust this leader. If you do, give an experience token to that friendly unit. So it has to be the unit that did the attacking and the defeating. It has to survive the attack, obviously, and then you can exhaust Revan to give the experience token. Experience tokens, as we know, can make things a lot more difficult to get rid of. The math doesn't always math when you do it that way. Darth Revan deploys on 5 resources into a 3/6 Force Sith unit with Restore 1, and has the ability when a friendly unit attacks and defeats a unit, you may give an experience token to that friendly unit. Notably, that does include Darth Revan. So if Revan is able to defeat a unit and survive, Revan itself can get the experience, which is awesome, because then you can continue to beef up your leader and hopefully keep it on the board longer, despite the fact that it might be taking some damage by defeating these units. So overall, the 3/6 isn't super exciting, but deploying on 5, as we know, is a good thing. Restore 1, as we know, is a good thing. And giving experience tokens potentially to all of your units that are defeating your opponent's units. That seems interesting. We'll have to see what other cards come out with Darth Revan that can sort of beef up that ability a little bit potentially. But what cards exist right now where we could play Darth Revan and get some success and get some value out of his ability? Because remember, this is only going to be a 2-aspect deck that you're building. You're going to be having the villainy aspect from Darth Revan, and then whatever aspect your base provides. So, we've seen a little bit of that with Lake Country Leia, only having the command aspect at their disposal, and then obviously heroism, because Lake Country is a neutral base. Darth Revan's going to be sort of the inverse of that in the sense that you're still going to be, able to run neutrals, but you're not going to be able to run double aspects and things of that nature. So what can we pair Darth Revan with? So let's go in order of the aspects, starting, of course, with Vigilance. Now, Vigilance, obviously, you see the largest card on this slide, Power of the Dark Side. That is representative of the greatness that is Vigilance, Villainy, Control. You're going to find a lot of success in a control environment with Vigilance. Vigilance has access to Power of the Dark Side. It has access to No Glory Only Results, Takedown, Vanquish, Fell the Dragon, the card Vigilance itself, if you want to be able to give shields, heal, discard, or defeat a unit that's down to a little bit a little bit of HP. So you're going to have the control aspect pretty well covered if you go this route with the Vigilance. But there's some other cards here that I want to talk about as potentials for Darth Revan. The first one, of course, being Supreme Leader Snoke. If you're going to be trying to defeat units, one of the easiest way to do that is to make it so that they don't hit as hard. Supreme Leader Snoke, things like Make an Opening, things like the Providence Destroyer, which doesn't see any play currently, but might in an environment where you're trying to give minuses to your opponent's units, might really do well here in a Darth Revan deck. How about Covert Strength? Covert Strength is one where you're going to be damaging your own units if you're using Revan the way he's intended to be used and attacking into your opponent's units. So if you have Covert Strength at your disposal, whether it's in your hand or in your resource row, you can heal some of that damage and add an additional experience on top of that. That seems pretty strong. Again, obviously with Vigilance, you have to talk about shielded units. Iden Versio here is a representation of that. There are going to be a ton of shielded units for you to use, including Iden, but also the Outer Rim Outlaws from Jump to Lightspeed, the Cloaked Star Viper from Jump to Lightspeed. That one has 2 shields, so it could potentially swing for 2 hits without even removing its shields and getting 2 experience as a result. So now instead of a 3-2, it's a 5-4. That could be pretty scary, especially in the space arena. And then, of course, Zillo Beast. If you were able to get to 9 resources and you don't have an Avenger at your disposal, Zillo Beast is one where if you're attacking into your opponent's units with 10 power, chances are you're going to be defeating them. That damage can just be healed right off at the start of the next round. And now instead of attacking for 10, you're attacking for 11. That could go into base, that could go into another unit, etc., etc. So a lot of options in Vigilance that Darth Revan could take advantage of. You've got the shields, you've got the subtractions of stats. There are ways that you can really try to maximize what's going on with cards already in the card pool. And look, we're going to see a ton more cards that are going to interact with Darth Revan. It's just going to be a matter of which aspect suits him the best within the meta and what that calls for. And that obviously remains to be seen because we're still a couple months out from even the release, let alone trying to figure out what a meta looks like in that time. So Vigilance there. We're going to jump ahead to Command. Command, obviously, you're going to have a lot of success with some ambush units, some high-powered ones at that. That's why Maul is here to remind us all that, yes, that 7-6 could just as easily turn into an 8-7. And then, obviously, Overwhelm is going to be massive in the sense of attacking your opponent's units. That's represented here by Maul and also by the MC-30 Assault Frigate. These are cards that you're gonna want to continue to give experience to. So while they're pulling double duty, right? They're attacking and defeating your opponent's units, and they're also dealing damage to the base. Overwhelm is going to be a very integral part of what Darth Revan's trying to do, so that you can not waste your opportunities to deal damage to the base. We didn't see that work as well with Maul, the leader from Twilight of the Republic, but maybe in this instance, because of the added power that you'll be gaining from Darth Revan, there will be a little bit more meat on that bone. I also want to mention Huyang. If you want to continue to build on what your board state looks like after the first round, you want to defeat a unit right away, get it off the board, but also your unit survive. Huyang's a great way to do that. Drop a Huyang, attack with your round 1 play, and then it's more likely that unit will survive. And now it's got the +2/+2 from Huyang and a +1/+1 from the experience token that was gained. And now you have a bit more of a threat on your side of the board, and your opponent has 1 less threat. So as opposed to trading, which you might have done if you didn't have the bonus from Huyang, you might be able to survive that attack, have a beefier unit that can then make it so that your opponent has to deal with it right away, or else they're going to take a lot of damage to the face in round 3. So I like Huyang there for that. And then the new Captain Enoch from set 5. Again, this is a unit that has a 5 HP for 3 resources. I think that's going to be something that's very valuable when it comes to having to attack in your opponent's units consistently. Enoch gets +1/+0 for each trooper unit in your discard pile. So this is more of a mid to late game option for you. If you're playing a deck with some troopers in it, you've got a couple troopers in your discard pile. Maybe there's a world in which you're paying 3 for a 4/5, a 5/5, and now you have something that can survive a lot of hits for a low amount of resources. And that's something that's really exciting because it's just going to keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger as the game goes on. This one, I would say, a little bit more focused on what it's trying to do in command. You're really going to want overwhelm. You're really going to want to go tall with your units to be able to take the most advantage of Darth Revan there. We skip ahead to aggression. Speaking of going tall, there are so many options in aggression to get really large units that can do a lot of crazy things. But anytime you're talking about Legends of the Force, you're talking about Force units, Force leaders, the conversation starts and ends with Force Throw. Don't know what's going to happen with this card, whether it's going to make it past the suspension list or not once set 5 drops. But Force Throw obviously is something that's very enticing in any deck with a lot of Force units, including a Force leader like Darth Revan. So has to be considered for sure and can make it so that you're softening up your opponent's units for some of your early round units to be able to attack into them and defeat them. You're going to have some key upgrades in aggression like Fallen Lightsaber. You're also going to have things like Ruthlessness that are going to allow you to defeat units, damage base, as well as increase your power. But Fallen Lightsaber is a representation not just of itself, but obviously we know we're getting a ton of lightsabers in set 5. We've already seen Darth Maul's lightsaber. You've got to assume that adding lightsabers to your units to be able to make them survive longer is just going to be something that you're going to want to do. Yes, upgrade hate is still going to be a thing. It's a thing right now. You know, Bamboozle is a card that's not going away. Same with Confiscate, same with Disabling Fang Fighter. The list goes on. But if your opponent is using their removal on the Fallen Lightsaber, you're still getting the effect of the experience token that's left there. So definitely something to consider, continuing again to make your units very beefy. Clan Challengers is one that I really like here because it's not suspect to things like Takedown because it's got 6 HP. It's not going to get hit by Fell the Dragon because it's got 3 power. Yet it's going to hit for 6. And then once you give it the experience token, it's going to be upgraded, which means now it has Overwhelm. So now it's going to be attacking for 7 with Overwhelm and have 7 HP. So that feels like something that could be really strong if you're able to sequence it correctly. Count Dooku is just a really solid Overwhelm aggression unit that is starting to see more and more play because people are seeing the value of Dooku dealing that extra damage when it's exploited. And then also being able to overwhelm with 6 power. Again, overwhelm is going to be so huge into what Darth Revan is doing. And then I put a cheeky one in here because Pre-Vizsla is a card that has seen 0 play for good reason. It's very expensive at 7 resources. But with all the experience tokens that theoretically you'll be putting on the board, Pre-Vizsla is one that could take advantage of taking those. And all of a sudden, instead of paying 7 for an 8/7, you're paying 7 for a 9/8 or whatever the case may be. You know, potentially if you're playing a shielded unit, you can do that with that and then have an experience token later on that you give to Pre-Vizsla from one of your other units. So I think there's a world in which if you can get to the 7 resource round, Pre-Vizsla could do some interesting shenanigans. It's probably a little too cute and a little too cheeky to make it into the final 50 or the final 60. But it was something I found interesting because of the nature of the token upgrades that Darth Revan's going to be dishing out. These 3 colors will probably have something good to do with Darth Revan in their own right. But I think where it's going to end up falling as the best color to pair Darth Revan with early is going to be the Cunning Aspect. The Cunning Aspect is obviously going to give you access to a lot of pumps on attack, things like Surprise Strike, things like Punch It, things like Shoot First, which I think we'll talk about it here in a second, is going to see an increase in value with a card like Darth Revan existing. So anytime you have attack boosts, you're going to want to use them to be able to defeat your opponent's units. And that's exactly what Revan's trying to do to make your units a little bit stronger. Boba Fett has fallen out of favor, the one from Spark of Rebellion. But I think now the ability to do 6 damage potentially on a 3-drop unit and have 5 HP still is something that's going to be enticing with Darth Revan's ability specifically. So I think there's a chance that Boba Fett sees an uptick in usage with Darth Revan specifically. Enfys Nest, again, this is sort of a combination of some of the things that we talked about earlier. Not only is Enfys ambushing right away, but is giving a minus to your opponent's power. Further, increasing the chance that Enfys survives the attack and is able to get that experience token. So I like Enfys a lot. I like ambush units a lot. If you're rocking Enfys Nest and Forlom, and with Forlom potentially comes Zuckuss as an ambush unit, and things of that nature, Bosk from Spark of Rebellion, you're going to be able to hopefully take quick advantage of Revan's ability without necessarily having to wait around and mess with your sequencing all that much. I mentioned the shoot first effect. That is baked into a card like Houndstooth, which could allow that to see an uptick in play. Because, again, if you're dealing damage before the defender, you're not taking any back, and therefore, as long as you're defeating the unit, and therefore, when you're getting the experience token from defeating the unit, it's going on a fully healthy unit, which is something that could be really exciting to continue to beef up your Houndstooth so that 4-3 becomes a 5-4, becomes a 6-5, and now you've got a really scary unit in space that your opponent has to deal with. And then finally, Infiltrating Demolisher here. The exploit giving this the chance to come out early as a 4-5. It has the high HP. It has decent power. It should be able to eliminate some of your opponent's early units and, again, continue to be a threat that your opponent has to answer. I think Infiltrating Demolisher could be a card that does well in Revan decks moving forward. So those are the 4 base aspects. Some cards to be considered that are already in the card pool with Revan. It wouldn't be, a Revan breakdown without actually mentioning villainy cards. There are going to be some obvious ones. There are going to be some that are less obvious, but I think my favorite is Kragan Gore, which again is a card that nobody uses, but Kragan Gore having the ability to give units shields on your side of the board can make it so that those units are able to defeat other units and survive, thereby getting the experience from Darth Revan. I think that's something that could be super valuable. It's also, not unimportant that he's a 6/6, right? So he could potentially do some of that defeating himself, stick around for a while, continue to hand out shield tokens. Speaking of shield tokens, obviously, Shuttle ST-149, that's one that comes in shielded, but can also take control of one of your experience tokens and put it on itself. So now you're paying 4 for potentially a 4/5 shielded, which is a lot more exciting. Can defeat a lot more things than a 3/4 at 4 resources. And then another new card from Legends of the Force, Scimitar. This is a 3/4 for 4, so obviously the stats aren't great, but when damaged, gets +3/+0. So now all of a sudden you're looking at a 7/4 when damaged. That becomes an 8/5 if it defeats a unit and is still damaged. So that experience can add up pretty quickly. But being able to attack for 8 in space on the 5 resource turn or the 6 resource turn is something that can be very enticing to a lot of people, especially if your opponent has, a space heavy deck that they're dropping capital ships in, or upgraded Millennium Falcons or things of that nature. So there's a lot to watch out for with Scimitar. There's a lot to watch out for with all of the new cards that are going to be coming from Legends of the Force. Whatever the case may be, Darth Revan is a really exciting leader. It's going to be tricky to play with only 2 aspects available to you. One, of course, which being villainy. and the other one being the color of your choice. But one thing's for sure, I will be getting that showcase, and I know a lot of people who will be clamoring to get their hands on a Darth Revan showcase as well. So really exciting for Darth Revan to be in the game. Really exciting for the implications of what Darth Revan being in Star Wars Unlimited means for the future of the game. We'll have to wait and see about all that, but for now, Darth Revan is here, and I could not be more excited. So that's what we've got for today. We had to talk about Darth Revan because just really pumped to get my hands on Darth Revan in a couple months, and not going to have a ton of time to test because a couple weeks after the set releases, it'll be the Galactic Championship. So I know some of you will be going to Galactics trying to get your hands on a Revan showcase. So happy testing. Good luck with all of your pairings and machinations, because it'll be a really exciting time to theory craft with this new leader. But that does it for this episode, this quick episode of Roll On Gaming. If you like what you see, if you like what you hear, drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and comment down below what color you will be pairing Darth Revan with when Legend of the Force comes out in July. Thanks so much for tuning in. Really appreciate your time. Have a good one.